Hi everyone, so today we are going to learn about Stripe webhooks with Next.js. So what are webhooks in Stripe and how do we use them? Webhooks are basically just listening for certain events that can happen in Stripe, and when that event occurs, you run some operation. So let's see a real world example. There are many type of events that can happen in Stripe, like checkout is completed, checkout session is created, or a checkout session is cancelled, etc. So you have this Stripe server and you listen for a specific event like checkout complete. You can obviously listen for multiple events. So let's say that a user completes a checkout. This will trigger the checkout complete event inside Stripe server. Stripe then send a post request to this API endpoint /API/webhooks, and it will also include the event data. When your Next.js server receives the API request, it will do some operation, and it can be anything you want. It depends totally on you. For example, you can send emails to customer or add some rows to the database tables. So that's how Stripe webhooks actually work. Now let's see how we can really use them in our Nextjs app. So the first thing you need is the Stripe CLI. You can check the install instruction for your operating system from the documentation. If you are on Arch like me, then you can install it directly from the AUR. Just search for Stripe using the AUR helper like here. You just need to install this Stripe CLI bin package. Once that is done, you need to log in with your Stripe account, and this is really important because if you don't do it correctly, Stripe webhooks won't work. I'm saying this because it gave me a lot of headache. Now you can use Stripe webhooks in two different environments. You can use them locally or you can use in a production app, a hosted application. But first, let's see how to use this locally. So now you need to log in with Stripe using the Stripe login command. When you run Stripe login command, it will create a default project. Think of it like a global project for your local machine, but you can create a separate project, and this project is only for your local machine. It isn't tied to a Stripe test account or a Stripe sandbox. Even though it is optional, but I will recommend you to add a project name. So you can just add --project-name and then equals to your project name. So I'm just gonna call it Stripe Next YT, and now just hit enter. It will give you this pairing code and a link. If you just hit enter, it will open that link on your browser. It will send you an OTP. Once you have completed the OTP part, you will be asked to allow access or deny access. Now here is the real important thing. You'll see Stripe has selected a sandbox for us, but if you click on dropdown, you will select other sandboxes. If you choose the wrong sandbox, then it won't work. So the sandbox I want to use is this one, Stripe Next YT. And now I can allow access. And the access is granted. I can close this tab. There is a config file for Stripe. If you are on Mac or Linux, you can check the config file from .config, then Stripe, then config.toml. Here you see the current project we're using is Stripe Next YT. Here is another project that I have created before. Now let's say that you want to use another sandbox for another project. You need to now log in with the Stripe login command, and in the allow access part, you need to select the correct sandbox. Otherwise your Stripe webhooks won't work. So every time you use a new sandbox, you need to log in with the Stripe login command. And I would recommend use this project name, otherwise it will use a default project. Now we can run our webhook server. So Stripe listen, and then run dash dash forward to, then your API endpoint, which is localhost 3000 slash API slash webhooks. And then I can give this project name with this dash P option, Stripe Next YT. And if you run the server, and Stripe has given you this webhook secret key, you need to store that inside the project. This webhook secret key is only valid locally. So just go to the env file and paste the secret key. Now we need to create our API endpoint. So just go to source, then app, then slash API slash webhooks, then route.js. You need to create a function called post and export that. I've also added some JS comment for editor IntelliSense. So the first thing you need to do inside the function is get the headers. You can do that using the headers function from Next.js. And then let's get the Stripe signature from the header list. If the webhook secret key or the signature doesn't exist, we will send a 400 response. Then we will get the body, request body, using the request.text method. And then we can create an event variable. And then just add a try catch block. We will log the error and return a 400 response. Now inside the try block, we need to make sure that the request is a valid Stripe request. We can do that using the construct event method. Just use the Stripe instance, then webhooks, then construct event, and you need to pass 3 parameters. First, the body, then the signature, and then the API key, the webhook secret key. It will return you the event. Now, like I've mentioned, you can listen for multiple events. That's why we need a switch statement to do operation for specific events. So just use the switch statement. And we need to check for event.type. The value in this case will be checkout.session.completed. You can get the event list. So inside the Stripe doc, go to core resources, events, and then types of events. Here you'll see all the events and some little description. The events that I'm using is this one, checkout.session.completed. If this is the case, I'm gonna run the handle success function and I will pass the event object. The handle success function is doing nothing for now. I'm just going to log the event inside the function, and that should be it. And now we should be able to test it. We have our Next.js server running. We have the webhook server running. Now let's just go to the checkout. Checkout is complete. Let's go to our Next.js server. We have an error, no response is returned from route handler. I know what happened. Sorry for that. So you need to make sure that you return a response from the API endpoint. So I'm just gonna return this 200 response. Let's go to localhost again. Checkout. I will pay. And now in the Nextjs server, you can see we have a big object. This is our checkout session object. And the most useful information is this object. This is the session. So you can just create a variable and then get the object event.data.object. The final thing I want to show you is line items, because because in this event object, you won't see the line items. You need to fetch the line items manually. So let me show you how. So inside the handle success method, you need to run the list line items function. So const line items. So it will be not event, stripe dot checkout dot sessions dot list line items. And here you need to pass the session ID. So I'm gonna get the session. And the session here is basically this big object. And the session ID is this. So just pass session dot ID and then pass an object, pass a property called expand, and then pass this string data.price.product, and you can limit to 100. Now let's just console log the line items. And also you need to await this. Now let's go to checkout and just pay. And we have this big array of objects. This is basically the line items. Here you have the subtotal, amount total, currency, and inside the price object you have product object, and the product object has a description, images, then name, etc. So that's it for Stripe with Next.js video series. I hope you have learned something new from this. If the videos has been helpful for you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me a lot. I'll try to make a Stripe subscription with Next.js video. But if you have any other suggestion or question, please put them in the comment section. I read most of them and try to help as much as I can. And I would highly recommend watching this video about how to send emails in Next.js. This can be useful in Stripe Webhooks, so I would highly recommend that. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.